Wednesday here. I am Eric. This is Emma. Lon is unfortunately out sick today. He'll be fine. But we are very happy in the interim to have Kim joining us to discuss Andor. Hello, Kim. So we're going to go into full episodes for spoilers. Full spoilers for episode 4, which is called Aldani? Star Wars names. It'll take a little learning curve there.
Well, and also it's Star Wars, so everyone's going to pronounce it differently.
I mean, even Han gets pronounced differently.
That's fine.
Yes. Yeah. I'll say Aldani for now.
Sabak, Han, Han, Leia, Leia. It's all good. It's all fun. You know what? Star Wars is really a choose your own pronunciation kind of franchise, and I like that about it.
From a certain point of view, all pronunciations are correct. Whatever you call the episode, we're going to spoil it though. So if you haven't seen the 4th episode, which is the 2nd week of Andor, Here you go. Spoiler zone in 3, 2, 1. Full spoilers for Andor episode 4. Kim, let me start with you just because, you weren't with us last week. So I'm curious, what are your quick overall thoughts on this show, having seen 4 episodes now? And what did you think of episode 4 specifically?
Right. Well, I really like the show. I think along with most other people, I'm enjoying this more grown up immersion in the Star Wars world. It's taken me a little while to warm to some of the characters and for them to kind of boil up for me. But that'll come. It's a longer series than we're used to, so I'm banking on that happening. And as for this episode, for me, it focused more on setting up again and weaving in layers, which is cool, and adding intrigue. There are characters here that I'm trying to figure out what side they will ultimately fall on, and I think there's probably some kind of murky gray areas there too. I mean, Andor himself is one of those. Mm-hmm. Although he's fully rebel, is the way he operates is clearly not fully kind of moral. My favorite thing about this episode, which is something that you may not have noticed, but there are now 3 British soap villains.
Did not notice that.
Yes, I did not know this, but please, Kim, break it down for us.
My God, well, Moss is Alex Burns, and he is perhaps the most famous over here for being in EastEnders and being this awful, abusive husband villain. And in the first episode, we had the guy that he killed, that Andor killed.
Oh, in the beginning,
He was Jez Quigley from Coronation Street. Another.
He felt like a British soap villain.
I got that vibe about him.
For sure.
And now in this episode, the driver, Mon Mothma's driver. In EastEnders, another heinous villain.
I mean,
well, keep an eye on it.
I was going to say, if anything is letting us immediately know that guy is definitely a villain who is spying on Mon Mothma on behalf of the Empire. Now we know for sure.
That's right.
Who's a villain in EastEnders? Done.
I really liked how this episode, really kind of got into the thick of things on Coruscant and with the Imperials, but also, we'll talk a lot about Mon Mothma and her introduction to this story. And, this is not a one-to-one comparison, but was slightly sort of Game of Thronesy in that really was just the idea of the sort of face-off within the Imperials. We always got the idea that they were kind of dicks to each other.
Yeah.
But Rogue One obviously had that with Tarkin and Krennic more directly. But here you really see it's just a bunch of jerks trying to get power over each other.
And that I think is one of the things that I am really enjoy, because I feel like thematically in this episode, it's things that have existed in Star Wars before. The idea of, going all the way back to Star Wars 1977, A New Hope, hiring Han Solo to fly them somewhere. Han Solo at that point is just a mercenary. He has no sort of connection to the rebellion whatsoever. But Han, it's this is fun and cute. This guy's obviously going to be cool. Whereas hiring Cassian Andor and bringing him into the fray of the kind of, it's not even a rebel alliance at this point. It's the beginnings of the rebels. It's these little individual cells and these very covert operations. And so the feeling of hiring a mercenary there is like, are you kidding me? We've been eating roots and living in the trenches for literal years, and you're going to pay this guy 200,000 credits?
Right. That is a lot,
You know?
from what we gather in Star Wars.
Yeah. So, and again, and we've seen this idea of, yes, the Empire, they're all kind of jerks and there's infighting amongst them and everybody's trying to climb the ladder. But here, it felt like in a much more real world, like backstabby way. It wasn't as kind of like mustache twirly villain. It was really conniving corporate, like.
Oh yeah, just like this look at these people and like sort of trying to outdo each other, trying to impress the boss over each other. I really dug it. I want to circle back to them, but let's talk a little bit more about Mon Mothma, who obviously is sort of like the most notable beyond Cassian pre-established character that we know is a part of this show. First of all, I just always have to mention how crazy and how much I love Genevieve O'Reilly's like journey with this character, which is to be cast in Revenge of the Sith 20 years ago, be completely cut, and she's basically an extra in the final movie, then brought back for Rogue One a decade later, and now she's got a TV show. I love that.
An amazing new outfit.
And an amazing...
I just have to say, it is so nice to see Mon Mothma rock some fashion. I know that that's such a small thing, but, it's kind of like watching the first few episodes of Rings of Power, and basically Galadriel was in, like, a white smock for all of it, and I'm like, when is this girl going to get some clothes? And then she got that blue dress, and it was fine, but now she's got some sick armor. Spoilers for Rings of Power, if you're not watching that. But yeah, I mean, just like... I'm so excited to see her involvement in this, and also just the way that she was introduced. And obviously she's already working with the rebels. She and Luthen have like a little side thing where she's gone to his, I guess, collectibles shop.
Yeah, Coruscant Collectibles.
That's like his front
gallery.
His art gallery, to purchase a gift for her husband, at least under the guise of purchasing a gift for her husband, which she does. Mr. Mon Mothma, we got to talk about what's going on with that guy, because like
you're better than that, Mon Mothma. You mentioned her wonderful clothes. I have to say her amazing space limo is incredible. Kim, what did you think of Mon Mothma in this episode?
I mean, she lives in the lap of luxury, doesn't she?
Right?
I presume it's all Empire provided, because it doesn't feel to me like her politics would kind of encourage her to buy those kinds of things for herself. The house is amazing. That table, that dining table, like it rivaled. You mentioned the Rings of Power, Durin's new table.
Yeah.
Who's got the better table? Table Wars.
Table War. That's the new segment.
Table
Wars.
Showdown.
Every week now here on Fandom Entertainment, we will compare tables from Andor, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and Rings of Power.
And then when we make our decision at the end, we say we consider this matter tabled.
Yes. Table Wars. Table Wars.
But Mr. Mothma, what an awful guy. I don't know what attracted to him. But maybe it was with a view to getting, in there, ingratiating herself. I'm not sure what his role is, but he's this kind of whining man-child.
I know.
And he's like, you're no fun. I'm going to sit with the fun people.
I wanted her to be happy. I was like, I want Mon Mothma to have like a man who's like her biggest cheerleader. And that is clearly not what's happening.
It's funny because it shows you kind of the strength of being able to expand on characters like this.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Mon Mothma, we really are just used to her being regal and giving speeches to rebels.
Sure.
And even when she was on Star Wars Rebels, it was to be like, I am no longer a senator, and kind of like going all in. So the fact that she even had a husband was a reveal, and then he was just this a-hole.
Yeah,
and
again, it's like, I think that is the thing that I am really enjoying, is getting the opportunity to see this character be something other than a figurehead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, for sure. Because she was just a symbolic thing in the past.
Yeah.
And it reminded me, honestly, I don't want to like continually rag on Book of Boba Fett, but to me, it's like clearly the weak spot in all these Star Wars shows. And there, some people would say, well, Boba Fett was nothing but cool armor, so what's the point of giving him a show? I'm like, well, the point is you can make him a great character.
Sure.
But I don't think they did that.
They didn't do that.
Mon Mothma wasn't a great character before this. She was a regal woman who gave speeches, but it's like instantly in this one episode, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting.
And it was like, cool, here's a woman who clearly is in a leadership position, but to see her before she's fully come into that leadership position and really explore her trying to navigate and quietly fund this beginning of a rebel alliance, like that is interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about... Oh, so go for it, Kim.
Well, it feels like that, you know, she's gone into politics to make change, to be a force for good. Yeah. And, you know, while she's been in there, she's discovered the corruption and the insidiousness of what they're doing. And the husband represents this kind of privileged person.
Exactly.
Who's reaping the rewards of privilege and burying his head in the sand or just ignoring what's going on for the betterment of himself.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, hey, our life is good, so who cares about anyone else? It's definitely what you get from that. Let's talk about Stellan Skarsgård's Luthen, who we got more of a look at here. Did you guys know that Stellan Skarsgård is a really good actor?
You know what?
Hot take.
I always thought he was.
You were like, this guy's got potential.
This guy's got potential. I know it. One of these days.
No, I loved like that transformation scene and showing that, because it's like he's not a senator, but he is this, like, he runs this store. He runs with the rich and famous on Coruscant, but obviously now he's out there doing stuff with the rebels. Yeah. And then he physically transforms himself. That great moment where not just he puts on the... First of all, I was thinking, guys, I was like, is this our first mirror or someone using a mirror in Star Wars? Because we always saw Padme all looking beautiful and great.
I know.
We never saw a process to get there.
Look.
So when he looked at a mirror, I was like, hey.
They have mirrors in Star Wars?
Mirrors.
That is really what Andor is all about. It's just bringing Star Wars into the real world, just down to earth.
I heard Tony Gilroy sat down for Kathleen Kennedy. He's like, one word, mirrors. She's like, yes. But yeah, him putting on that the wig and the outfit, and then like practicing his sort of affectation as that guy. I really dug that. And the idea that his assistant is clearly in on it with him, because they're watching the evil villain from a British soap together.
That guy, I know that guy. He's not to be trusted.
Did you guys notice though? It was interesting thing where they are having a conversation that she has someone else she wants to bring into their inner circle. That he's like, I think that's like he's nervous about. So it's not him saying Cassian Andor. That's not who they're talking about.
No.
So yeah, what do you think, Kim? Is this someone? Is it going to be like someone we know, or is it just going to be like a weird little subplot about who she wants to bring in? It's not her husband.
Definitely not her husband. He gotta go.
No. Oh God, I really don't know. I really have no thoughts on that. I am letting that happen, and I'm going to be surprised when it does. So.
I mean, unless we're immediately talking about bringing in like a Bail Organa, you know what I mean? Like that's my only.
I mean, Jimmy Smits feels like an inevitability on this show. But I will say that. I mean, maybe in season 2, but you got to give us some Smits.
Chat, you let us know your theories. We'll get to you later in the show. Get your questions rolling in. We'll address them. Questions, comments, wild theories. We want them all. Let's continue.
And then of course, meanwhile, Cassian. So Cassian, they told us, by the way, going into this show, not a spoiler, just something they presented to us. Tony Gilroy said is Mon Mothma and Cassian are not. I don't think they're going to meet in this season. Certainly, it sounded like if they do, it'll be at the very end of the season. It's really telling parallel stories about sort of the burgeoning rebellion. So he doesn't go with Luthen to Coruscant. He's dropped on this other planet for this different mission. Kim, what did you think of sort of Cassian setting off here, and what we got a little bit more backstory here, and then we started to get this interaction with this new sort of cell of rebels we saw.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. First of all, that he lies about his background to Luthen before he's dropped off there. You know, he says that he spent 2 years fighting in Mimban, and then immediately Lutheran comes back and says, actually it was 6 months you were on the ground, you went in as a cook, and then you saved your own skin and Garpered. So I mean that shows, you know, two things, that Andor is willing and to lie to whatever, to further his reputation or whatever it is, whatever his reason is. And Lutheran, it shows his knowledgeability. He's plugged in, that he has connections everywhere, and he will know the finest detail of your background, whoever you are, however secret you've tried to keep it.
Yeah,
cool.
and I thought also it's like, you know, I think we mentioned this a little bit last week, but it's like, look, of course there's going to be some inescapable parallels with Han Solo in the broad sense of like mercenary in it for the money who will eventually become true believer and a rebel. But I think that they know that. It's fascinating. Like, by choosing to say that he was on Mimban, which is the planet Han Solo fought on in Solo, they're almost like, let's acknowledge that, because there are very different characters, and this is not. So it doesn't feel like, even though we're like, yes, we know the broad strokes, we know he's going to join the rebellion fully, but I don't feel like, oh, this is just Han's story again. I feel like they're saying, hey, there's other people like this who have to kind of be convinced to rise
and
up.
Ultimately, a lot of that conversation that Lutheran has with him is, I mean, mega foreshadowing for Rogue One, where he literally says to him, you hate these people and you are going to die fighting this war.
Yeah. Yeah, and which could have been cutesy. It's one of the but it doesn't. Yeah, like, because sometimes I hate in prequels when they're like, if there's one thing I'll never do, it's if he said that.
It wasn't like, and let me be clear, I like Solo, I think, more than most people, but it wasn't like the moment in Solo where they're like, what's your name? Han. You're all by yourself. No last name. Solo.
Yeah, that moment.
Like that. But this, again, even though, yes, it is foreshadowing, but it felt like foreboding and not like a cute, you're going to die.
Right.
Well, that happens again later when they reference this mission that they're about to go on as a suicide mission.
Right.
We obviously know later that Rogue One was a suicide mission. So.
Yeah, very much so. And then, you know, we talked about them a bit at the top, but let's talk a little bit more about the ISB coming into this in a huge way. Again, a name that I'm not sure I'm pronouncing right, Deidre, but who obviously is going to be like a big part of this show.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like looking at this side, the white suits. Krennic was one of them. They've been a part of Star Wars before, but these guys that are in theory security, but then he says that no, we're actually, what does he say? Like,
they're like a healthcare company, is basically what he was saying. Yeah.
Right. And I really thought it was interesting. Go for it, Kim. What were you going to say?
I just was saying, we locate germs, whether they're from within or without, and we deal with them quickly to stop the spread of disease. That is a paraphrasing, but
yes.
Yeah. And we talked about, last week we talked about how it was so interesting to see with everything going on Ferrix, how like the Empire was not like local authorities. They were using other people to, but in this episode, it is mentioned as like, oh, they're one of the planets still doing that. And quickly enough, they're not one of the planets still doing that.
Well, and that, I think, again, goes back to the whole idea of why our boy Karn's superior was like, hey, we're just gonna act like this was an accident. This guy was totally a jerk. It's a surprise that nobody killed him sooner. And now I think you have a greater understanding of why he wanted to do that, which is basically like, we've managed to lay low and keep things to ourselves, and we're not under Imperial control. We just kind of get to do our thing, but then Mr. Overachiever has to come in, and he got a bunch of his co-workers killed.
Yeah, and then everyone's in trouble. I put down my favorite quote from this episode. I have a feeling I'm going to stumble on this, so kudos to Ben Bailey Smith, the actor who did not, which is when they're all being taken up to task, including his boss, who said, don't get involved in this. But he says, it took the combined ingredients of idiocy, ineptitude, and total disengagement for this farce to reach the full apex of incredulous disaster. I'm going to remember that line.
Yeah, that was good.
And I really...
Mosk raises his hand.
And he goes, seriously? Yeah. That was great. And again, because this is a more serious Star Wars, but it's not humorless. I thought that was such a funny moment right after that to have happen. And I really liked Blevin, too, as it's obviously going to be this sort of posturing for power between the two of them. And they're both smug and,
and that's the thing that I like about it is him being so outwardly accusatory of her going, you're just trying to climb the ladder. You haven't been here that long. Maybe you should, build the ladder before you try to climb it. And her just being like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not interested.
Right. And also, so let's talk about also, though, I was impressed. I didn't know that they would do this or not, but they definitely at the end they're like basically tackling sexism in the Imperial workplace.
Yup.
And it's this thing of like the original trilogy had no female Imperials because that's like real life bias that made that happen. But now they have to explain that there were some, but why weren't there that many? And that conversation they have about, what did you think of that conversation?
Look,
there's a really cute dog just walked into our studio.
The studio is open.
We're aware this dog, it's someone's dog.
Just came in. She is a corgi.
She's right behind us.
Viva.
I'm trying not to just go, sweetie, I love you.
Really see if I'm gonna okay, she left. I was
She's
gonna
just
try
in a
to pick
full
her up.
circle. She's in a full circle now. She's leaving.
Viva's gonna go operate the soundboard for us
great.
now. Okay, thanks, Viva. Oh my God, I'm dying.
This is a really cute dog, guys. Sorry.
So cute. I'm sorry you cannot see her. I will post an Instagram story of her later. Right, sexism in the workplace. Again, this is Star Wars really bringing things into the real world, and I feel like, in the original trilogy, it was just all dudes, and they didn't. I feel like they didn't really harp on the idea that it was only men.
No.
That's just how it was.
Yep.
And
all white dudes in that first movie.
Yeah, well, that checks out.
Yeah.
But anyhow, But again, I like that once again, it's this idea we're bringing mirrors and we're bringing sexism into Star Wars. Yeah, it doesn't feel like I was saying last week about Andor. The thing that I am enjoying about it so much is that it doesn't feel beholden to do what Star Wars has done tonally in the past, and I think that what that is resulting in is some of the more interesting villains that we've had. I'm very invested in what's going on with all of these bad guys, which a lot of it boils down to ambition and corporate greed. And that feels very real to the real world. Yeah, too close to home.
Bringing me down, man.
Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating that Major, again, these names, Partagaz, who, certainly has a very Tarkin-y, super strict vibe. But he's the one who's like, hey, you have a higher bar than everyone and that sucks. But he's also like, keep locking people up and being a fascist. So I do like that is... nuance to the Empire gets to be a part of this because we're spending so many episodes with these people.
Well, because there's nuance to the good guys also. This is very much not a black and white Star Wars. As we've been discussing, even with the character of Andor specifically, that it's really fun to address his level of selfishness. But the way he describes his selfishness is very different from a Han Solo selfishness. I just want to be Han Solo and fly around and do what I want. And I use humor as a shield to hide my deep depression and things I should work out in therapy, which probably doesn't exist in Star Wars. But with Andor, he is very much no, why I don't want to get involved. What's better than being involved and fighting for this is just being able to do what you want and live your life. And I think that is something that will continue to get explored in this series, is this idea of the people who are just living their lives, who are just doing their jobs, et cetera, and so forth.
Yep. We should get to AMA in a bit, although we have some other stuff to discuss
yes.
first. But I do want to mention Syril, who is told basically, you're out of job, you won't be replaced because the Empire's coming in, and then goes home to mama. It's such a
Oh my God. What is next for Syril?
We always knew he was a mummy's boy.
She's very it seems like he's gonna be I already think maybe he already is like the Buster Bluth of Star Wars.
Oh my God.
I'm going off to Empire, mother.
Yeah. I wonder too, his face is so punchable. I felt a little sad for him, even though he's a bad guy. He really was just trying to do a good job, and he truly ruined it for everybody. And who hasn't been there?
Yeah. What do you think the home life will be here, Kim, for him and his mom?
I mean, I presume that there's no father. That's a given.
Yeah.
He is through and through a mummy's boy. The neighbor, I enjoyed the neighbor watching from across the way.
Oh, he's like, oh, that kid's back. He's got stories.
But yeah, he is. I think he's going to come into his own as a villain now. Now he's been humiliated, but in front of the neighbor by his mum. That is it. He's not going to hold back now.
And so we should mention that this episode obviously didn't have any Bix or Marva.
Right.
Someone last week in the chat had said that they'd heard that this show was every 3 episodes is kind of a mini story arc, and I said I knew that's how season 2 is because each was a year.
Right.
I've since read that too, so kudos to the person who said that, whose name I forget. So that makes sense to me that this will be that mission, I'm guessing, is done in 3 episodes.
Yeah. Their mission. I also love, by the way, that the way the mission was initially set up was he was like, yeah, you're gonna go steal the payroll roster to basically get info on who all the employees are, and then he shows up to the actual rebel operation and they're like, no, we're taking on an Imperial garrison.
Right. Surprise. I do my big pet peeve with this show, because now I'm really digging this show after these last 2 episodes. My only pet peeve continues to be how it just ends on such weird men.
No, truly. So I had watched most of the episode and I knew I had a little bit left, and y'all, the credits on Disney Plus shows are long.
Yes.
So if you see that you have 8 minutes of an episode left, actually you probably only have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Because I drove into work and I was like, all right, I got to watch the last 10 minutes of this show. Literally, it was 90 seconds and they were on that transport thing. And I went, oh, okay, that's just where it ends.
It just ends with her being like, you take the first watch. Kim, what do you think of that? The sort of the way I said last week, it's a little bit formless as an episode, because it just kind of be like, all right, time to end this installment. Does that bug you, or is it okay for this show?
No, it doesn't bug me because these series are very much kind of feels to me like a film chopped into parts. So I kind of wait until I've watched the whole thing before I form a major impression on the show, because that's how it's going. But as for these characters in particular, the group, I wish they could be a bit more Rogue One. They don't have a lot of flavors so far. I'm missing a Chirrut Babe.
Yeah.
Except the one sweet boy, the one that got in trouble for fault. I like the nerdy sweet boy who's just very sincere.
Is he gonna derail this mission though?
He probably is.
Or panic he's
just gonna die.
And he'll probably die. The formlessness does bug me, but I think I can accept it more if it turns out, and it seems like it will, that it's these 3 episode arcs, and that every 3rd episode, that's where it feels like they have an ending.
Yeah.
That's why I thought they did those 3 together. So
yeah.
I think it might be something like that, I bet Bix and Marva, I could be totally wrong next week, but I have a feeling now we're not going to see Bix and Marva until the next arc.
Yeah.
If that's what it's like.
I know what you're saying, though, Kim, because I feel like I find all of the dynamics with the bad guys to be so they're so interesting as characters, and it's really fun to follow them all mean girling one another. And the rebel crew, aside from Luthen, who's not with that group, Stellan Skarsgård's super interesting, But I see what you're saying about that kind of rebel group, that so far I'm not super connecting with any of them because they don't necessarily have very distinctive personalities. But again, we didn't actually see that much of them in this episode, so maybe next episode is their time to shine.
Yeah, there's kernels of stuff, like the idea of Lieutenant Gorn, who's like their inside man. And so it seems like he's been there for a while, working with the Empire, has all this info. He is echoing other characters, and they're like, why are you bringing this guy on 3 days before the mission? It was a couple of characters kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But I do hope they kind of get fleshed out a bit more going forward.
Again, why I think I had a little bit of love for that sweet little boy, because he was like, yeah, if he believes in the cause, so he can totally be on our team.
Yeah, and I liked his line about glue in the rain.
Yeah.
Alanis Morissette should use that one.
He's so dead.
Probably. I see Cassian screaming over him. Let's pause for call to action. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. We have a bunch of stuff going on, guys. We know we didn't do honest trailer commentaries this week. That's just because it was last minute, because Lon was out sick. But we're going to do the makeup tomorrow. Do you know what time we're going to do that tomorrow?
Look.
10 o'clock, says the voice of William in my ear.
10 o'clock tomorrow.
10 o'clock tomorrow, so it's going to be back to back. Ooh, you're going to get it's going to be a couple hours of exciting times here at this desk, because we're going to do honest trailer commentary, and then right after that, we're going to have our She-Hulk episode chat. Kim, Bailey, and I will be there for that. If you haven't yet, please check out on this very channel the House of the Dragon mid-season spoiler discussion. Also on this channel, you can check out a couple different Andor interviews I did, one with Diego Luna and Genevieve Riley, one with supporting cast, kind of digging into stuff about their characters and where they're gonna go on their journeys. And then we also have a really good Evolution of the Rebellion video that kind of looks at everything we know about the rebellion and how they kind of rose up. That Ken Knapsack did for us. He wrote that for us, and you should check that out as well. Emma, what have we got going on Twitch?
After you watch a couple of shows that take place right here at this desk, you can come back at 2:00 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. We're starting a little early because I have a hard out because I am going to Halloween Horror Nights tomorrow night.
I'm wearing the shirt for that.
Hey! Is it your Killer Clowns shirt?
It's got a bunch of characters.
Oh, it's got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. So from the desk to over on the couch that you can't see, but I'm gesturing in its general direction, we will be finishing up Call of the Sea, which is our September Game Club game. Also collecting votes on what game we will be starting in October. So we are obviously going to do something spooky. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then at 11 a.m. Pacific time, every Friday, we do a live watch party of Rings of Power, because that is supported by Twitch, because Amazon owns Twitch in addition to Prime Video. All you need is a Prime Video account. You join us for the stream. We start the watch party. You log into your Prime account, and we are all watching the exact same feed. So no 1, 2, 3, you need to start right now. It's all under control. It has been so much fun. It is. I cannot recommend watching that show with other people strongly enough. We have such a great time. We have a running list of who might be Sauron. I'm currently on it. I have not been crossed off the list yet. So please come hang out with us for Rings of Power. It is a ton of fun.
You know who should join you on that couch if they're in the office? Viva the dog.
Yes! Oh my God. If Viva comes back on Friday, she will be on the couch.
Excellent. Because, a good girl. She deserves.
She's so cute.
Let us, we're going to take a little look here at our Star Wars community Wikipedia. They are selecting an article each week to spotlight that has a connection to Andor episode that we just watched. Last week, we talked about Rashi's Salvage Yard. Now we're going to turn over to Jordan. He's pre-taped this time. We had him live last week. We're going to mix it up sometimes. Who is the human behind Wook Official on Twitter. And he's going to break down this week's Spotlight article. Jordan, what do you have for us this week?
Hello, fandom. What an episode of Andor that was. I hope you all enjoyed it. This week for the Wikipedia article showcase, we decided to go with the K16 Briar pistol. Now, this is actually the pistol that Cassian Andor's own MW20 Briar pistol was based on. The K16, that was actually based on the old Briar pistol that Kyle Katarn used in Star Wars Dark Forces. So this one's going to look a little familiar to everyone. Now, the K16, that's actually a good article on Wikipedia, meaning it is as complete as it can possibly be. And to our knowledge, there is nothing else that's missing from it. Thanks for having us on again, and we hope you all enjoyed that episode. See you next week.
It's always funny with Star Wars is something that keeps ongoing canon like this, which is like complete articles. I'm sure like every once in a while it's like we think it's complete, and then something comes out.
Something else will come out, and it's like one frame of a comic book, and they got to update the article. Right. I love the way that the really complete articles on Wikipedia are laid out, because a lot of them, especially as we're in this new canon era of Star Wars where they are incorporating things from Star Wars Legends, and they, you know, the way that they lay it out is there's a canon tab and a Legends tab, and so you can kind of go through both. So like Kyle Katarn is all Legends. That's not a canon.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think about? Will this show kind of properly explain? You could fill in some blanks yourself, but I do. It's such a specific line in Rogue One about I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old, and then we met him in the flashbacks, and he was like
older than 6,
and he's not 6. He's like 9 or 10. Do you think we'll get some explanation about that line? What do you think, Kim?
Well, I mean, I presume that that's because, you know, we don't see in this series him losing his parents, and presumably they talked about the mining disaster on his home planet, which was clearly not a mining disaster. So the Empire would have been behind that, and so he would have known that they were an enemy from the age of 6, presumably, and there started his fight.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to get more of that too, as far as just like why he turned cynical when he was once more of, you know, on board with fighting. I actually really liked the line also when he was saying to Luthen, he says, Alliance, Sep, Guerrilla, Partisan Front, it's all the same to me, basically dismissing anyone who is not the Empire, not because he loves the Empire, but because he kind of thinks it's worthless. It also reminded me of something that I think Star Wars could do something well if they wanted to, which is Separatists. In the timeline 15 years before, a huge chunk of the galaxy tried to like leave and they failed, but they can't all have been like, all right, I guess we're done being mad about that, you know? And I think there is obviously got to be some crossover between the Separatists and who became the rebels, but I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that explored more, you know?
Yeah, I agreed. It's like he was definitely not 6 in the flashbacks.
Right.
But it seems like, I mean, we didn't see any adults with that group of children at all. So it seems like maybe that was a Peter Pan Lost Boys situation, except someday they will grow up.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, here. So let's when we go into some AMA questions here. Actually, I'll start with one that I do think is a good question, which is on what we were just talking about, Emma, which is Bruins fan 1144 asks, so what happened to searching for his sister plot?
You know, look.
That's ongoing. That'll be ongoing. She will turn up eventually.
Yeah, I feel like I think it's easy enough to take it that it's not like he was like just had decided to find his sister. It's more like an ongoing thing.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where he had heard a tip about a woman from Canary working at that brothel, and so he went to go investigate it, but it wasn't as if he had shut everything down and was like, well, I'm leaving my life and going to search for my sister. So I think that again will be a sort of an ongoing, and as he continues to travel around the galaxy as part of the burgeoning Rebel Alliance, he may pick up more tips about where she might be.
Yeah. I do keep wondering when we're going to see some anger maybe towards Marva for doing what she did, taking him away from his friends and his sister.
Right.
That hasn't been explored yet. He must have some residual anger about that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I assume we'll probably get more flashbacks because, like, I guess that's supposed to be in the flashback her husband, who also like raised Cassian, as his father.
Yeah, they said he got hung in the square, I think.
So we need more of like that dynamic. Yeah. And what exactly was going on there, and I hope so too. I think it seems safe to think that his sister will tie into him becoming more of a full rebel. I hope it's not the cliche that like she dies, him saving her, like she tries to save her and a stormtrooper kills her in front of him.
No, you know what I want it to be?
Something else.
I really want it to be, if y'all have not seen the show Warrior on HBO Max,
I need to. Joe Starr was Warrior fan number 1.
So good. And him finding because the main character's trying to find his sister who was separated from when they came over from China. Oh man, that finding of his sister and her whole plot line. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. I would love something like that for Cassian's sister.
Let's see. Darth Relum says the head of Imperial Security boss definitely has drinks with Krennic from Rogue One and Tarkin from New Hope. I mean, sure. I mean, there's got to be some evil Empire mixers, right?
I really want to know what the Empire's like cheers is. What's their like go-to bar?
And maybe this guy, what's his name again? Partagaz. Maybe he likes Krennic and Tarkin, and he's like, I wish these guys could get along.
Yeah.
But,
Nobody likes Krennic.
Fair.
I like Krennic, too.
Do you like Krennic or do you like Ben Mendelsohn?
I mean, I love the character, but it's like Syril. Like, yeah, I don't know if I want to hang out.
Yeah, no, totally. I love Syril, but not like I want to hang out with Syril and have him be my friend. I love what a petty little bitch he is. I just have to say it.
Oh no, if the hat fits. Absolute Space Girl says Big Admiral Dalla from the EU vibes in that scene. She's referring to the scene we were discussing when they were talking about the sexism in the Empire.
Yeah, so of course I referenced this immediately on StarWars.fandom.com, aka Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yes. Natassi Dalla was a human female who became the first woman to reach the rank of admiral in the Imperial Navy, a founder of the Imperial Remnant, and later was named Chief of State of the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances. So, big struggles to rise to prominence within a highly sexist organization.
Yeah.
Good for you, girl.
I remember reading those books, which came out like in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And it was the first time because it was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there were a female Imperial officer? But I guess we should explain why we hadn't seen any before.
Why we never saw any before.
And basically having it be like, she had to deal with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
As Admiral Dalla there. Did you read any of those EU books, Kim?
I didn't. No, I didn't. But I was looking at that question and I'm thinking EU, European Union.
It all ties together.
Yes. Yes.
Legends.
Yes. Legends is officially what it is called now.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Sure.
Chad W.C. Michael asked, does the end of Rogue One instantly dooming just about everyone on screen mean that the show can afford to go way off the beaten path to see what works without really risking canon? Well, I mean, the thing is that only one prominent character in this movie dies in Rogue One so far, right?
Yeah, the only one we know for sure dies in Rogue One is Cassian. They referenced Saw Gerrera.
They did, and we know we're going to see him.
And we know he's going to be in it. And we know that like K2 is going to show up at some point.
Yeah, and be doomed
Sooner rather than later, hopefully. 'Cause I love K2.
Yeah, sounds like season 2. We have to wait for.
I know. I hate that.
I mean, I think I referenced Better Call Saul last week as far as like showing you that if you do a prequel right, you don't have to be undermined by knowing the main character's fate or somewhat of their fate. You know?
Yeah.
So I think I don't know about risking canon. But I do think that we're already seeing that this show, like just the way it's operating and the way it's diving into these characters, can just feel like it's doing its own thing.
Yeah, I think that it isn't. It has nothing to do, I think, with risking canon so much as it's able to just tell its own story very confidently because it knows it exists within its own like chasm of like its own little bubble of Star Wars, because there's only a finite amount of time that they can deal with.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there won't be characters introduced in Andor that we may eventually see within other Star Wars canon, any that managed to survive. But it is nice for them that they, again, have this very contained period that they're working with.
Yeah. And also just, because it's not focused on like the central characters from the series, like we mentioned with Mon Mothma, it's like, okay, we know Mon Mothma is going to be alive in Return of the Jedi. She's got
exactly
a long time to go, but that's okay because we're already like learning a lot more about her. So it doesn't feel like, what's the point? You know?
Yeah.
She cares about Bothans. I get it. There's more to it than that.
There better be some heckin' Bothans in this show. My God.
Darth Vellum has a question, guys. Do you remember? I know the line that is being referred to here, but I'm trying to remember the context. What did he mean when he said, don't look down? I'm trying to remember. Was
that when the two ISB officers were having a conversation?
I'm trying to remember. Dang it.
Darth Vellum, tell us.
I know.
Where was the context of this line?
We're failing because
this is a good question.
It is a good question that we have a terrible non-answer for you. Bruins fan 1144 says the actor who played Major Partagas played Qui-Gon in Game of Thrones. That's where I knew him from, and was clearly wanting to remind everyone with his talks of infections and germs. Kim, do you think that these characters are spiritually related?
Yeah, I think they are. I think one is the reincarnation of the other. I would say Partagas is the reincarnation of Qui-Gon for sure. I mean, I thought Anton Lesser, who's the actor's name, was brilliant at making these corporate speak lines feel full of odiousness and pomposity, and it was perfect for the character. And he felt truly, thoroughly evil to me, on Tarkin lines, as we were saying. So
and I see. I agree there. And it's again like they're all, like I said, like I like that they're all like jerks with nuance, right? It's like that's all we ask from our jerks. Marcus Bisma suggests don't look down the ladder. They were talking about career path. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was. It was in the moment that I was thinking of.
Yes. It was the ISB and being like, just look up, in real life and in the career path.
Because if you look down, there's people cutting the rungs out from under you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then their name is Blevin.
Yes, Blevin.
And by the way, I was telling Emma that I was very amused that the actor who plays Blevin, I was like, who is that guy? I liked him a lot. And I looked him up and it said that his name was Ben Bailey Smith, a.k.a. Doc Brown. And I thought, has he played Doc Brown in like that Back to the Future musical? No, he's a rapper who raps under the name Doc Brown. So Doc Brown, you did great as Blevin. And let's wrap it up here. Brent Dreher makes the observation that we do eventually get a female chief stormtrooper.
We do.
Yes. Well, the First Order, you can say a lot of bad things about them.
But the First Order, they were way more open to women in positions of power. The galaxy had really come a long way.
Why am I? I'll just say Snoke, because I was trying to forget, when is the General Domhnall Gleeson's character? What's his name?
Oh, Hux.
Hux, yeah.
I was like, Hugs,
Yeah.
I'll hold for General Hugs.
That's General Hugs. Say what you will about his screamy ways, but he was progressive. So.
You know what? And apparently a spy.
And a spy. and quick and a turncoat. Why not?
Reason.
All right, guys.
Evil Bill Weasley.
Evil Bill Weasley, who gets to be on 2 theme park rides at different theme parks.
That's correct. You know what? Good for him.
Good for him, indeed. Kim, thank you for subbing in here with us this week for Andor Chat.
Thanks, it was fun.
And I look forward to your drink tomorrow as we discuss She-Hulk. Guys, thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with all that stuff we talked about.
Busy
and
day.
More.
Oh, yes.
Here at Fandom. Farewell.
Bye.
Bye.